This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals.
It's funny you say that. I had an investor the other day. He'd say, you know what? Well, I can't do that because I'm trying to grow my business. I'm like, you trying to grow your business or your bank account? Right? You want to do 100 flips and be living on the razor's edge, or do you want to do 60 and be wealthy? The choice is yours, right? So what happens there in that situation is you're scaling too fast. You can scale out of profitability, right? You can be making a ton of money, but if you're constantly applying leverage against it, if it's too out of balance, you get popped. And even if you're not flipping homes or like rehabbing, even if you're just wholesaling, but you're expanding your team, you're going to new geographies and you're taking all your profit and you're utilizing it for growth and never taking chips off the table, okay? Never taking chips off the table. It's like playing blackjack. This isn't rocket science, right? You win 6 hands, 7 hands, 8 hands, you start getting a little cocky. You're like, man, I'm pretty good. I'm rocking this. Let me just put it all in all the time. We've all sat at the blackjack table where eventually the 21 gets turned over by the dealer. Business is no different. You can't be all in all the time. And so if you apply the right disciplines and put those right disciplines in place, you should create an environment where when the dealer turns over blackjack, you've still got some chips in your pocket. You can walk out, have one final cocktail, go home and relax, right? So I'm going to give this to you, all right? You got to first understand the methodologies, if you will, of you should always be taking chips off the table. Why should you be taking chips off the table? Because you need to be able to answer those questions. Can I protect my business? Can I protect my family with a yes? All right? Profit is more than a number that shows up on the bottom right-hand corner of your P&L. If you scale and scale and scale at a pace that outstrips that profit, it's not really profit. And you're all in all the time, the 21 comes up, okay? So if you understand that conceptually, now we're going to tell you from a disciplinary standpoint what you should be doing. You should put at I would say until you get to the point like legit where you are netting $500,000, you should put all your efforts and energies. Now again, this is different. If you're a corporate employee, you make $200,000 a year and you're going to do that for the rest of your life and you want to buy one property at a time. But I'm assuming our audience is full of wholesalers and flippers, right? Before you start investing, you should get your current income to where it is consistent, predictable, and reliable for several years in a row, right? I would encourage you to get it to the point where you are at least netting $500,000, okay? Because that's your structure, that's your pump, that's your foundation. The fastest path to a big passive income is to create a big active income. So if you start there, where I'm just going to grow the heck out of this core business, where it's consistent, predictable, and reliable, and then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm netting $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is, and you say, okay, I'm making more money than I can spend. I've got the house, I've got cars, my kids are going to good schools, like, I'm good. I can't even spend all this money, right? So what needs to happen at that point is you got your stuff, but do you really have security? Can I provide if something goes sideways for my family, for my business? So you've got different buckets. You've got your pump, right, which is your core income. You've got retained earnings for your business. You've got retained earnings for your family. And then you've got a tax bucket. And then after all of that, you've got investing, okay, or your passive income. And there's more to passive income than just passive income. It can be used obviously as a tax mechanism from to depreciation and offset income and stuff. But I want to kind of try to keep things fairly simple today, okay? So you get to the point where you look up and you're like, my active income is pretty strong. It's consistent, predictable, reliable. I have more than I need. I'm not stripping money off of it to go buy assets or stupid stuff that initially don't really give me what I need back, a couple $100 a month. What I am going to do now I've got more than I need, I'm going to set some thresholds. I'm going to have these buckets over here for my family and for my business. And I'm going to establish an amount to say, you know what? It cost me $150,000 to live. And so I want to have 18 months of reserves in case something gets choppy, to make sure that I can navigate that choppiness from a place of emotional intelligence and not have to stress out and have my family be stressed out. So I can live on $150, $200. I'm making $500. After taxes, I'm pulling down $350, $400, whatever it may be. I'm going to start taking that excess money and I'm going to start putting 20 grand a month over into until I hit, say, I don't know, what is that? I need 18 months at
like 150, 200.
Yeah, call it 200. I'm going to put 20 grand a month over into my family bucket for 10 months until I got 200 grand in just cash, right? And then I say, okay, my family's good. They're my primary priority. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do the same for my business, right? And depending upon what your expenses are, et cetera, you're going to have to come to some conclusion to say, hey, it takes me X amount of dollars to operate on a monthly basis, and I want to have, call it a year's worth of cash to cover operating expenses if things get sideways, okay? And so let's just say that's another 200 grand. And so then for 10 more months, you put 20 grand into that. And then you say, okay, I've hit my thresholds, right? I've hit my thresholds. I've got a consistent, predictable, reliable income. I've got 200 grand in cash for my family in case things get rocky. I've got 200 grand for my business in case things get rocky. And now at that moment, I say, I've been putting 20 grand a month away, right? Every month for 20 months, I'm disciplined. I got a process, but now I've hit those thresholds. So I've created responsibility, right? Or I've been responsible in that structure. But if I were to put any more money in those buckets, I might be teetering on the verge of irresponsible because you don't want to have too much sitting idle. So now, every month after I hit the thresholds for my family, my business, taxes, I'm going to start being an investor, a real investor. So if it was 20 grand a month and it takes you 30 grand, let's just say 30 grand to buy a house, that assuming there's debt tied to it, every month and a half, you have enough money to buy a house. And it's only $200 net. But here's the beauty of it. Now you need to buy houses not only to begin creating passive income, the cash flow from the rentals, but your income is elevated to a point where you need the depreciation mechanism to begin offsetting your active income, okay? So you're killing multiple birds with one stone, but you're doing it at the right time instead of too early in your journey where you are trying to go straight to the investing bucket and sucking the oxygen out of your business that hampers it from growth, reduces predictability, and puts you in an environment where you got a couple of rentals spitting off a few bucks a month, but when shit hits the fan, or when things get a little choppy, you're like, I don't have any money because it's all locked up in those properties, right? Now, once you get to that point, you got enough money if every month and a half to buy another rental and another rental and another rental and another rental. But it all goes back to the initial focus of putting a big focus on creating a big active income. That takes care of everything else on the backside.